It's easy to be an optimist on a sunny day. It's storming outside. How you doing? Welcome to the Retirement Answer Man Show. My name is Roger Whitney. I'm your host. I'm excited you're here. Now, if you're new here, this show is dedicated to helping you not just survive retirement. We want you to have the confidence to lean in and rock retirement, even in a storm. Doesn't mean it's not scary, though. Man, this is a storm when it comes to the economy, interest rates, inflation, the markets, the bond markets, the stock markets, on and on and on. Holy cow. So we're going to try each week to fortify you to navigate this storm well. And to start off, I want to make sure I let you know something, is that it could get worse from here. Interest rates could go a lot higher. Markets could go a lot lower. Inflation could go higher. It could maintain these levels for a while. Doesn't mean it's going to, but it could. Don't worry about trying to predict it because you can't. So what do you do when you're in a storm and life is throwing you some pretty hard curveballs? So back when I was in high school, I would sail on a lake. Had a little sailboat I would take out and just sail solo. And at the time I wore one of those little, you might remember them, like a little belt-like life preserver. It wasn't really enough to keep you afloat. It was like a ski thing they used to sell. I'm sure they're illegal now. And I'm sailing back and forth on the lake. It's a really, really windy day, fairly choppy. And because I was a teenager, I was trying to go fast and I was trying to get the boat up on its side and just go as fast as I could. And then when you try to do that on a windy day in chop, you inevitably tip over, which I did quite often. And one time when it tipped over, you have to get on one pontoon and you have your arms on the other and you're in the back, you're basically on the bottom of the boat and you have to pull back to right the sailboat. So I did this one time and somehow the sail caught and the boat took off because it was a windy day and it was choppy. So I was sitting in the middle of the lake by myself with hardly anything to help keep me afloat, seeing my sailboat catch speed and go. That was a stormy moment. It's easy to panic in that moment. As a teenager, I was a good swimmer, but it wasn't like I was on the swim team. No way I was going to catch that boat. So I sat there processing what happened. I oriented, and what do you think I started doing? I started swimming. First, I just started swimming towards the boat like I was going to catch it. And then I said, wait a second here. I know there's a sandbar somewhere to my left. So I changed direction and started swimming. And I would take risks and I'd try to float on my back. And then I would swim and I would float on my back. There were some times when panic started to set in, but then I would swim again. I never actually reached the sandbar because a gentleman in a boat came by and happened to see me and took some mercy on me and came and picked me up and we chased down my sailboat and I got on it and sailed very humbly back to the house. Why do I tell that story? When you're in a storm, you're in a very stressful situation, it's easy to lose sight and panic and worry. Well, you're going to worry anyway. There's going to be a little bits of panic. Let's not deny those things. They are there. I have them just as you may have them. But when you're in a storm, what do you need to do? Number one is you need to bring your life back to micro, not macro. You need to think about what you can do next in a little baby step, not look macro and feel like you're going to figure it out and take in more information and more data. You need to close it tight and focus on what little baby step can I do to make progress to gain what I want. You got to go micro, not macro. And in retirement, whether you're on the cusp or you're in retirement, what is it that you want ultimately? My guess is it's going to be able to cover the expenses that represent the life that you want to live, not about optimizing portfolios and interest rates, etc. So during stressful times, you want to focus on what can I do next? What little thing can I do next to navigate this storm in the world right now? And then you'll find some safe harbor in constantly identifying places where you do have agency to make little incremental changes to help you navigate through it. Doesn't mean you're not going to get wet, soaked, maybe dumped once or twice. You're going to come out potentially on the other side of this economic storm, a little bruised, a little battered with your portfolio and with inflation and the cost of things. And you may have to make lots of compromises. None of us are going to necessarily get out without any of those, but you can navigate it and still continue to apply your agency to have confidence to rock retirement. Because the storm's here. We all can be optimists on a sunny day. Now let's get on with the show and answer some of your questions. I invite you to join me live on Thursday, October 27th, or Saturday the 29th, where we're going to do two things together. First is I want to share a simple structure to help you have more confidence in your retirement plan. But even more than that, I want you to have confidence that you can manage that plan as this crazy world unfolds. Plus, I want to share details about the Rock Retirement Club because we have our last open enrollment for the year starting on the 27th of October. Now, recently we had our annual conference, the RRC Roundup, which is included for all members. We had 200 plus people come to Grapevine to spend a day and a half learning and chatting with each other. And I got to chat with virtually all of them. And there are some things that I learned about what they feel like the club has given them. First was that they love that they have a structure to understand exactly how they're going to pay for their dreams and how they're going to make decisions as life unfolds using an agile process. Second is they love having access to all the retirement coaches, not just to learn from, but to ask questions to. And that really gives them confidence. And lastly, but definitely not least, and I think this is always the most surprising thing with members, is they are blown away at how much they learn from other members and how it's such a safe place where they feel like they have allies to help them along on this journey and to learn from. I would love for you to see if the Rock Retirement Club is right for you. So you can register at livewithroger.com. All right, now we're going to get to your questions, and we'll be doing question and answer shows for the next month or two. So if you have a question for the show, go to rogerwhitney.com/Ask Roger, and you can type in your question or you can leave an audio question. There's bonus points. You sort of jump the line a little bit if you leave an audio question because we love to hear your voice. So let's get on with your questions. We're going to start with two related to Social Security and inflation. So I'm going to play both of those and then we'll try to wrap them all in together. Our first one is from Karen.
Hi, Roger. It's Karen here. I appreciate your show. It's been all kinds of helpful. Since I'm the financial person in our household, we've turned my attention to new avenues that needed some thinking. My question is, I heard somewhere recently that COLA adjustments don't apply to Social Security until it's been claimed. So I think that means that waiting until I'm 70 next year in early 2023 means I'd forego the supposed 10% increase in benefits coming this year. I've rushed to start my claim now, but am I missing something? Is there anything wrong in my thinking? Appreciate your answer. And if I'm correct, maybe others in a similar situation should be aware of this also. Thanks so much for all you do.
That's a great question, Karen. And I saw recently that the Social Security Administration announced that for 2023, Social Security benefits are going to go up by 8.7%. Woo. Whew, that's a big increase. You can see how powerful this COLA adjustment to Social Security benefits is. It's going to go up by almost 9% next year. So inflation happens throughout your working years and throughout the years when you might start claiming Social Security. The way your Social Security check is calculated, inflation is incorporated to help protect you against it. Now, the only gap that can happen is if inflation issues happen between the time that you turn 60 and the time that you turn 62. And that's because the average wage index is grabbed from the year you turn 60 and used to determine your primary insurance amount for a potential benefit at 62, which is the earliest that you can claim at a reduced benefit. And so for you, Karen, since you're 69, the cost of living adjustments is built into your benefit calculation. So this should not impact you. So that's the blackout period between 60 and 62. Any inflation that happens between those ages, you may miss out of because as they hold off on calculating so they can get that benefit right. Now let's go to the next one related to Social Security and inflation adjustment.
My name is Floyd, and I'm trying to find a retirement calculator that has pensions with COLAs included in my retirement projections. If you could give me any information on something that has that, I appreciate that. Thank you. Have a great day.
So in this case, Floyd's looking for something that incorporates a pension with a COLA adjustment. Well, I'm a little bit biased here, Floyd. We provide Money Guide Pro as a benefit to Rock Retirement Club members, which is a professional grade. A consumer can't buy it, but we give you access to it as a member. And it definitely has COLA adjustments as an option for pensions. But otherwise, there are some ballpark calculators out there. There's valueyourpension.com has a calculator, HughCalc.com, that's HUGH, calc.com. And if you go to either of those sites, you'll find a calculator that can ballpark what those benefits will be. And basically, it shouldn't be too difficult to do in a spreadsheet as well. If you have a pension for $60,000, you'll have that as your first year payment. And then you'll just have to decide on the assumed COLA adjustment, cost of living adjustment, that your pension is going to use. And you can get a little bit of information about that from your benefits department, or you could just simply use CPI over a period of time to ballpark it. So you could, in a not too difficult way, do this via spreadsheet as well. So hopefully that helps you. Oh, by the way, we will have links to those two calculators in our 6-Shot Saturday email, which is our weekly email that you should get. And you can sign up at 6shotsaturday.com. Our next question comes from Perry related to 1035 exchanges. Get your geek hat out, maybe. We'll see. Let's listen to Perry's question.
Roger, hello. My name is Perry from Charlotte, North Carolina. First, I want to thank you for your podcast. I've been listening for a number of years now and finally gotten a lot of good information from it. And I retired about 1.5 years ago. Question I have is about a 1035 exchange from a universal life policy that has $30,000 of cash value. Gotten a proposal to move it into a life insurance policy with long-term care. And it seems to make sense because it would provide about $4,000 a month for long-term care. It would take that $30,000 and then the premium would be about $2,000 a year for that policy, which would give me long-term care benefits, but also life benefits. I was wondering what you thought about that option. Seems to make sense on the surface just because there's a limited amount that you can do with that cash value without paying taxes on it. So I was just wondering what your thoughts. And again, thanks to you and the team for everything you do for us.
Well, you're welcome, Perry, and thanks for the question. In general, what you describe, I think, is a potential good use of a universal life insurance policy. So let me break it down so everybody sort of understands what it is you're proposing. So the IRS has a code, 1035A, which allows a like-kind exchange from an insurance policy or an annuity into a standalone qualified long-term care policy or a hybrid policy, which is essentially an life insurance policy with a life insurance benefit. And this 1035 exchange allows you to do these transactions in a very tax efficient way, because in that universal life policy, Perry, where you have $30,000 as cash value, most likely you have some gain over the years that you've owned that. And this allows you to move it without creating a taxable event. And you may not have heard a lot about these 1035 exchanges. They've only been around since 2010, even though it was enacted back in 2006. And so what you're describing, Perry, is that you have this cash value in a life insurance policy that may not give you enough benefit to make it worthwhile. And your options are to maintain that policy, to withdraw the money and close out that policy, and that may be an appropriate pathway. And another pathway, as you describe, is to move that to a different policy. In this case, you're looking at a life insurance policy that has a long-term care benefit attached to it. And so we've talked about these hybrid policies. We've had series on long-term care with our friend Steve Kane, and no doubt we'll have some more of those in the future on the updates of the structure of these policies. So a hybrid policy, which is what this is called, is a life insurance policy that has a long-term care benefit rider. And you say it's about $4,000 a month in potential benefit as a long-term care solution. And then your premiums would be $2,000 per year. And so if you need long-term care insurance and you have an old life insurance policy, this may be a good swap, because one of the benefits of a hybrid policy, unlike traditional long-term care, is that they don't increase the premium amounts related to that long-term care benefit, meaning that once you buy it, you have it, and they're not going to increase the premiums related to the long-term care benefit. Whereas if you buy a traditional long-term care policy, they have the ability to apply to the state insurance board to increase those premiums. And we've definitely over the last 5-10 years seen some eye-shocking increases in long-term care premiums, sometimes 20, 30, 40, 50%. A hybrid policy can neutralize that risk. Now, on the flip side, you're going to have these additional payments to fund the life insurance and make sure that the assumptions within the illustration that they're showing you are reasonable, so that you might not have to fund more because they had unrealistic assumptions. But Perry, I think in general, this 1035, using an old life insurance policy to purchase a new one that has a benefit that fits you in retirement because you have this long-term care benefit, is totally reasonable. Our next question comes from Bill on what to do with his portfolio. Said, hey, Roger, I just started listening to your podcast and have found it very helpful and thoughtful. As a non-financial person, I find most financial information out there way over my head and frankly uninteresting. So I appreciate your efforts to make it more holistic. You bet. Bill says I'm going to paraphrase some things here because Bill shares a lot of information. They got laid off or impacted by the workforce reduction in 2002 related to COVID. Now he and his wife have started Social Security. They have a little bit of a pension and officially retired in 2021 and consolidated all of their investment accounts into one investment bucket and chose a large national investment firm to manage the money that they had accumulated. And here we are in 2022 in the middle of a storm. And Bill says, unfortunately, we have watched the retirement bucket dwindle down substantially over the last several months, like most people certainly have. While the firm we chose to help manage our investments sends us regular communications concerning the transactions and activity and have some periodic updates and annual reviews, we are questioning whether our investments are getting the level of attention needed, especially during all the market instability. So Bill's question is, he says, our question is whether we should be seeking an advisory vehicle that may be smaller in size, but have more hands-on approach to client investments in order to hopefully gain a greater sense of oversight over our nest egg. Quite frankly, Bill says, we seem to be stuck at a point of indecision about whether to move our investments elsewhere or just stay the course. Any insights you have might be helpful. All right, Bill, let's talk about this. So you have your investments at a large national investment firm. Don't really know whether you have a financial planner or not. And we've had some conversation about this recently on the show. So if you are paying for investment management over and above the costs of, say, the mutual funds or exchange traded funds that you're owning, you should be getting some level of retirement planning with that, because the investment part of the equation is extremely important and fairly simple in structure, but very difficult to implement on an ongoing basis. And the financial planner or advisor that you're working with should be working as a decision-making partner on the entire picture of your retirement, not just simply the investment portion. They may be in charge of implementing that part, but they should be integrating that into helping you have the confidence and the oversight to see how it all works together. And I think that's, I paraphrase what I said a few weeks ago when we talked a little bit about this subject. If they aren't doing that and you're paying for advisory services, you probably are paying too much and you should look elsewhere. What is it that you want a advisor or planner to do when you are in retirement? What are your expectations? I would write out, what is it that a good job would be if you were to continue with this firm or to hire someone else? Maybe write out some of your expectations and share it with them, because perhaps they do those things, but they've never just broached those subjects with you and you've not asked. I don't know. And then if they say they don't or they're unwilling, then you have a framework to go find a search or to do it on your own. What should you expect? I think of a quality retirement advisor as someone that acts as a decision-making partner in all sorts of things outside of the investment portfolio, of what truly do you need goal-wise or vision-wise in terms of cash flow to live the life that you want, that you would be proud of and happy with. And then organizing the social capital that you have, your Social Security and your pensions, the human capital, if you have rental income or you have part-time work, and then your financial capital to determine, are those resources feasible looking in the short term and the very long term, given all the uncertainty, to achieve the spending that you want. So you want to make sure you have a feasible plan. And then once it's feasible and you have confidence, and they should be showing you this so it makes sense to you, then they should be showing you, okay, this is how we're going to make it resilient. Meaning when a storm does come, how you're not going to get knocked off course easily. And that's a lot of cash flow planning that integrates all of these things that we're talking about. And then beyond that, there's the ongoing optimization from a tax standpoint and everything else. This is a lot about what we're going to talk about for you to be able to assess it on the 27th and 28th in our live meetup. So you can go to livewithroger.com to register for that if you'd like. But Bill, that's what I would do. I would start with, what is it you want from an advisor? And then talk to them about it to see perhaps whether they do these things and they just haven't been doing them for you. It's almost a joke that financial advisors, financial planners say, don't worry, in the long run, it will all work out. Look at my charts. That is, at least in inside baseball, that's a joke. That is something that has been said forever. Oh, don't worry. Let me give you our latest research report, and that should give you confidence. That doesn't work, and that's not going to cut it when you're trying to navigate a storm. So you don't have to just simply have baseless hope that it's all going to work out in the end. You do want to have oversight, and you want to get micro and focus on what little things can we do with our advisor, if you choose to work with one, so you can all navigate the storm together. So hopefully that gives you some framework, Bill, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we have our live meetup on the 27th as well. Our next question comes from George on some resources that we share related to the case studies that we've done in the past.
Hi, Roger. This is George. I'm a relatively new listener. I started listening in July of 2022 and have enjoyed your podcast very much. I am now going back to your earlier podcasts and have started with the Bill and Sally example. And I was wondering if those documents and calculations are still available for review. If so, I'd very much like to get those so that I can follow along
Well, welcome to the show, George. I'm excited that you're here. Hopefully you're navigating the storm well. Now, I'm going to explain what you're referring to, George. So every year in January for the last 4, 5, 6 years, we've done a case study where we bring a listener in, and we'll be asking for volunteers here next month to anonymize them. I think that's the word. And then they come on and we record some discussions that they and I have about their situation. And we build a retirement framework trying to focus on what the vision is. Is it feasible? How do you make it resilient? And you can listen to those in our podcast archive. So that's what you're referring to. And then we share some documents related to in the replays of those. You can get all of those at rogerwhitney.com. And if you click on free resources, you can access that. I think there's a button there to get all the resources where we'll have the replays of the audio of the conversations with the listener. And then we do a live, webinar meetup where I walk through the analysis on screen of what their vision is, what their spending is going to be, what resources they have, and whether it's feasible and how to make it resilient. So we do these every year. And you can get all of those at rogerwhitney.com and just click on free resources and they're within that. So hopefully that helps you. And we're going to go to some feedback from listeners related to a prior show that we've had where someone was asking about how do you get out there and meet people if you're a little bit shy and build a community once you leave work? Because when you leave work, you lose a lot of the embedded community of your workplace. So I'm just going to share some feedback from, people like you that have walked this journey. Our first one comes from Lara, and Lara says, I agree it's hard to make friends as we get older. One way I've had some success in finding already existing groups is via Meetup, which is an online platform. I believe it's meetup.com. A few years back, I found a game night group and recently found a local book club. Both were fun and full of interesting people. It's easy to join an existing group than to start a new group, but it's now pretty easy to start a new group to the internet. Also, don't forget, it's really easy to have Zoom calls with old friends until you can establish local friends. So that's a great idea. So what she's referring to is this platform called Meetup, where people post all sorts of kinds of groups, and you can navigate the kind of groups that you want to join. I've tried some game night meetups locally because you can go local. And you can also look for ones that meet in public. If you're a little bit worried about going to someone else's home, you can try to book club and meet at a Starbucks. But Lara, thank you so much for the idea. It's a good one. Our next bit of feedback comes from Linda. And Linda says, being new in a retirement community where no one can be intimidating, but I quickly learned that everyone shares the same anxiety initially. My best advice is to be willing to take the first move, and I found it gets surprisingly easier each time. Be willing to chat to anyone. Share that you are new and looking to get involved in community groups. I have received numerous invitations to participate in the next club meeting and see if the group of topic interests me. Join the singles club or start one. There are more single residents than you might suspect. Join a girlfriend club, the goal being for women to meet other women and do fun things together. A resident in the community started this type of club after COVID, and the response was even huge, with residents wanting to meet people after a long time of living there. When meeting someone that you find interesting, invite them to coffee or drinks or lunch. One friendship quickly leads to another, and they multiply quickly. You will be rewarded by making the first move. And that is hard to make the first move, Linda, isn't it? But it's harder, I think, to think about it than to actually do it. I think you're right. It gains momentum. So bravo for you, Linda, and thanks for sharing your feedback. Andy has another piece of feedback for making it easier to meet people, especially if you're new in a retirement community. And this is a very practical one. Andy says, to make it easier to meet people, get a cool dog and go for walks around the area. Assuming you want a dog. But if you get really any dog, as long as it's friendly, a cool dog definitely helps people stop and make conversation. And if you love dogs, that means that the people who are going to stop most are going to be dog lovers. So very practical advice, Andy. Thanks. Our last little bit of advice for today, anyway, comes from Frank. He says, the hard part sometimes when you meet people and you're like, oh, I sort of like this person. They seem like somebody I can hang out with, is exchanging information, etc. And so Frank says he made a contact card with his name and telephone number on it. And he just did it with a simple piece of paper made from an Excel spreadsheet. He made about 20 of them and just cut them up. And I always keep them in my wallet. It's nice when you bump into somebody that you think you might meet and say, here's my contact card. Give me a call and text me. It makes it a lot less awkward and a lot less friction in that transaction of, hey, if you want to call me, here this is. And it's free on them to reach out or not. And Frank says he also knows some people that even put down some hobbies that they do. I'm a carpenter, I'm an RC pilot, painter, guitarist, or just some humorous things. I think that's a wonderful idea, Frank. I love that you just did it with Excel and cut it up and made it nice and simple and keep them in your wallet. Sort of like the business card, right? When you're in work, you just hand it out and let the other person make the first move after you've handed the olive leaf out. I actually have business cards that are not related to my business. There's just my name and my phone number and my email. So if I meet someone that I think is interesting, and by the way, I meet interesting people everywhere, I can hand them that. And most people never contact me, but sometimes they do. So great idea, Frank. One last little bit of feedback I got was in the use of flesh out something. Got a number of emails related to that. And I appreciate when you catch me when I'm misusing words. And actually, Nicole, it's almost like a weekly tradition is that she will text me with a PSA on something, and flesh out is one of them. And I think I've solved this one. I say flesh out more. So I appreciate everybody giving me some feedback. Quick funny story related to the rodeo roundup, it used to be called the rodeo roundup. It's the RRC roundup now. So we're doing the introduction. The grand introduction. I'm standing in front of 200 plus members of the club. I got the entire team. Andy Panko, Wade Fowl came by to give a speech. Shauna, my wife, and Nicole and Tracy and Tanya Nichols and Kim Davis and Scott Sanborn, just the whole team there, plus 200 plus people. I'm standing, welcoming everybody, and I'm introducing the team. And I introduce my wife as Shauna, drag queen Whitney, in front of everybody. Because everybody has a nickname. Kim Possible, Tracy is Mrs. T, Shauna is not her nickname is not drag queen, it is swag queen. Swag, stuff we all get. That is, she is responsible for sending out welcome notes and t-shirts and stuff like that to new club members. So she is the swag queen. But in my flustered state of standing in front of 200 plus people, I called her a drag queen. And luckily, everybody got a great big kick out of it. Even more luckily, she got a laugh about it. And now I get to be teased about something else. So with that, let's go set a smart sprint.
On your marks, get set.
And we're off to set a little baby step you can take in the next 7 days to not just rock retirement, but rock life. So while we're in this storm, here's what I want you to do. I want you to set up a meeting with yourself or with your partner. That could be every single month. It could be once a week. I'll let you determine the frequency. And during this meeting, you're going to review and confirm that your plan, whether it's pre-retirement or after retirement, is still feasible and still resilient. And then you're going to choose one little action, little tiny micro action that you can take. And I want you to put this on your calendar, and I want you to do it outside of your house. And the reason I want you to do this is so during this time, you're going to focus on the storm, and you're going to orient, and you're going to pick a direction, and you're going to take a little baby step. And then you're going to give yourself permission not to think or worry about it in between those meetings because you know you're going to have them. I'm excited to hang out with you and the hundreds of other people that have already registered for the 27th and 28th. We're going to talk about the open enrollment for the Rock Retirement Club. Really proud of that. Excited to explain that to you. And I'm excited to help empower you with a simple framework to assess where you are so you can navigate this storm. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance reference is historical and does not guarantee future results. All indices are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. Make sure you consult your legal, tax, or financial advisor before making any decisions.